Hi everyone, welcome to another S5 history class. Make yourselves comfortable. In this recording, we're going to continue our discussion of um, the Industrial Revolution, but we are going to focus on the iron industry. This is it's another aspect or part of the Industrial Revolution that's important to understand. Um, you know, Today we have a certain lifestyle that um, a way of life, a lifestyle, at the same time, a quality of life that brings us a degree of comfort. And many of the things that bring us comfort are things that we take for granted that we don't think about anymore. So you can try to understand, the mining industry and the iron industry during the Industrial Revolution as small revolutions that brought about the kind of life, the kind of world that we have now. And these are the things that we don't necessarily understand, that we have taken for granted because they're everywhere. We don't even notice them. Okay. Now you have to imagine that before the development of mining and the iron industry, most of the things that you know that people used, they were powered by hand, or human labor, human effort, or by animal power. But then once you have mining, once you have iron, and of course at the same time machinery that's made out of iron and that can be that can be operated with the help of coal as fuel, then you would have you know more automated kind of machines, and machines that are no longer driven by human or animal labor or energies. Okay, so iron is important because this was used to build steam engines and locomotives meaning trains, okay, or components of trains. So at the same time, that also means that you would have a different a different communication system, a different transport system, which we'll talk about later, that's powered differently and that's made of different materials. That's why this is important. Now, we've already mentioned smelting. Smelting is, this process whereby you separate a valuable mineral or substance from, the rock that contains it. So you separate the iron from the rock. Okay, so that you call that the iron ore. Okay. So you need certain things to be able to do this. You need charcoal, for instance. You need limestone, okay, and you also need coke. So what you do is to bring them all together, all of these things, you put them into in the furnace, and then you have two outcomes. One is, of course, um, one outcome is something that's not useful to you. That's called the slag. So all the unwanted materials, the impurities, they come out as globs, and you call that slag. And then the molten iron, the melted iron, okay, liquid iron, would come out and then eventually would solidify as it cools, and you call that the bloom here. So you need iron ore, limestone, coke. You need limestone because that uh, brings together all the things that you don't want to be in the iron, so that you get a purer kind of iron. So wrought iron, we're talking about wrought iron actually. That means iron that is worked. So you know, you you mine it out from the ground, but then you have to work the iron, you have to make it pure, you have to separate certain things from it, things that you don't necessarily use, other chemicals, for instance. So, like I said, you need coke, and we already mentioned coke before. Uh, Impure iron or pig iron, you produce that by smelting, and you still need a little bit of manual labor there because you need a hammer to beat out whatever's other the other materials that come with that's contained in the iron ore. Now, eventually, people would develop certain processes in order to produce wrought iron. Okay, so for instance, you don't have to be an expert about it. This is just to give you an idea of how people did it and how people still do it today. Um, Henry Cort, for instance, in the late 18th century, he invented the process of puddling and rolling. And these are things that you still basically use today, right? These are methods that um, you know that producers of iron and steel still use today. So what you need in puddling is you subject the iron ore to uh, the pig iron, impure iron, to extreme heat. You stir it in the furnace, and so you know you separated the iron itself from the other materials that you don't want. Okay, and then rolling, that's a process whereby you create iron bars in the sense of round cylindrical thinner iron bars from the bloom. The bloom is the solidified iron, molten iron, and you make the bloom go through machinery like this, and they have rolling structures, so they roll, they go around. And so in the process, you make the iron longer and smoother, actually. You turn it into something like this. Of course, you cannot use your hand when you're holding this. I don't know if it's very clear, but here, as you can see, this person here is holding it with a tool because obviously you need this to be very, very hot in order to be able to turn the bloom. This is the bloom into an iron bar. And you just put it through the machine and it rolls it, you know, makes it longer, etc. So that's how you produce iron bars. Wrought iron is, of course, better than pig iron because it's has a better quality. It's cheaper and it's easier to make. But then there's even a better product, which is steel. So Henry Bessemer in the mid 19th century invented the converter method. And what is that? That's a way to um, turn pig iron into steel. What you need is to to mix uh, chemicals with liquid pig iron. So here are the chemicals that you need so that you produce different qualities or grades of steel. You you let hot air pass through the furnace. You remove the impurities and also certain chemicals and substances are separated from the raw iron, and then liquids, this is subjected to very high temperatures, so liquid steel then is allowed to come out and harden. Steel is important because it's cheap cheaper to make, definitely stronger than wrought iron, and it's just a stronger material and more pliable, more flexible. So this the the invention of steel and the production of steel, they contributed to the improved quality of machines, like I said, locomotives and ships. So the production of steel led to improvements, advancement in communications meaning uh, the railway system, for instance, and transportation by sea, which would actually help build a more global kind of trade interchange. Okay, thanks to ships. Okay, that's it. That's the second part of our discussion of the mining industry and the iron and steel industries. I'll see you in the next lesson.